Hey everybody, happy Monday. Today is Monday, April 9th. I am excited to be back. What a great weekend and what a great response to the TED Show on Friday night at the Citrus Club. You guys are amazing. So let us know you can hear us and see us, because it would be really sad if you couldn't hear and see Manny's Story. And today I'm with my friend Manny Garcia, who I haven't seen in quite a while. Oh, Belkis is on. Belkis, give us a thumbs up and let us know you can hear us and see us. Okay, there we go. So, welcome. I don't think I've physically seen you in a while.
It's
right?
been a while. It's been a while.
And I just asked you, hey, Belkis, I just asked you if you just got back, and you said 2 years ago, hey, Rebecca. And that is really sad on my part. Oh, Stacy says she can hear us or see us, so we're golden. So welcome, man. We've been friends for a long time.
We have been, yes.
I just never got an invite over to Thailand or wherever you were, and I'm a little sad or kind of disheartened about that.
Well, we miss living in Thailand, so we're going to go there soon, and next time you'll come with us.
Okay, see,
sure.
There it is.
Yeah.
It's so easy. You just put it out there, then people, look at all the people coming on and giving thumbs up. But I don't even remember where we met, but we're both in the real estate world of some kind. Remember, I'm a loan officer. See, that's the one little part I get to say, and then it's over after that. So give us a background on you, my friend. You actually have a very unique story. So you share what you'd like to share. And I think the audience would love to hear your background.
You got it. Well, actually, we met here through Dave Wood back in the day.
Is that who we met
That's
through?
right.
I thought we knew each other before that.
No, we met here, yeah.
Okay.
And I met you, I'm like, fell in with your personality, and here we are now. Many
see,
years later, doing the TED Show.
Doing the TED Show.
So, so today's show is obviously about, being and living at peak performance. And I think the story that you want me to share is the story about my childhood. And, I think we all have a story. And when I look back at my childhood, I went through some dark times, and it took me some time to really figure out who I was going to be as an adult and how I was going to break some of the chains that my dad kind of, inflicted upon me. So at the age of about 4 years old, my sister, myself, and my mother were living in Puerto Rico. My parents were divorced. She had an accident, and she lost her arm in that accident. My dad was always trying to come after us, and he was trying to, cause harm because he was obsessed with the fact that my mom had left him. And while we were in the hospital, nobody was paying attention to my father, and he came and said, listen, let me take Manny to breakfast and I'll bring him back. And everybody was like, yeah, okay, no problem, because they were so focused on my sister, Mimi. And that was the last time that they actually saw me.
Wow.
So what was interesting is that when I was, fast forward, I'm almost 9 years old. I'm living now in New York City. Nobody knows where I'm at. I'm having lunch over in St. Gabriel's Catholic School with my buddy Patrick. There's some milk cartons there, right, with some pictures of missing kids, and my buddy taps me on the shoulder and he's like, hey Manny, why are you on that milk carton? And I'm like,
you can't make this up, guys. Every time I hear the story, I get the chills. It's crazy.
So when I saw myself on the milk carton, I'm like, wait a second, that's me. But I chucked it off. It said Manuel Garcia Jr. Everybody knew me as Manny Garcia at the time. So I'm like, oh yeah, it kind of looks like me. I kind of chucked it off like it was nothing. And as soon as we were done with lunch, he threw everything away in the trash. I reached in, grabbed the milk carton, folded, put it in my pocket. And later that evening when I saw my father, I was living with my father at the time, I'm like, Dad, I think I'm in trouble. He's like, what do you mean? He was very stern. I said, well, look, let me show you. And I showed him, my picture on a milk carton. He freaked out. His eyes opened up real big. And he's like, oh yeah, kind of chucked it off as nothing and, tucked me in bed. And he's like, okay, no worries. And that next day we were gone from New York City on our way to Miami.
Wow.
So, when we rewind, the reason my parents got divorced was because my dad was obsessed with music, and my mom caught my dad physically beating the girls one evening when he was trying to, force them to play the piano. And that's the reason for the whole breakup. And he was just kind of like a Beethoven or a Mozart. He was very, very brilliant. Actually, was a very prestigious musician in Spain back in the day. But growing up with him was very, very challenging. He had very high demands. He had very, very high expectations. I felt like I wasn't ever good enough. I got punished a lot. And, growing up, that was very, very challenging. To the point where at the age of almost 10 and a half years old, I actually tried killing myself a couple times because, I felt like I didn't have any purpose. I felt like I was not connected to anybody. I felt like I had no love. And right about that time, that's when my dad actually passed away and I was reunited with my family. And then I had to kind of parent myself for a while because my mom didn't really know how to be a mom. I was gone for all those years. And it took some really great mentors that were older than I was to kind of sit me down and help me understand maybe some of the reasoning behind, the way my father, was parenting me and all those things. And there was this one moment which was a turning point for me when I look back. I was almost 11 years old, right before my father passed away. He was beating me because I wasn't mastering the lesson. And I remember I got very angry, and I looked at him and I said, you know, what kind of father does this to his son? Why do you beat me like this? And he said, you know what, at least I don't make you bleed.
Oh.
And then many years later, as an adult, I reflected back upon that, and I said, well, in his mind, you know, he was trying to be a better father, because in his mind, he was justifying the fact that at least he didn't make me bleed. And that's when I then decided, you know, I need to break those chains, and I need to figure out how I can become the best possible human being, the best possible parent, and the best possible later then coach, you know, with the people that I coach in sales environments, so that they never feel like they're not getting the value.
Wow. Okay, so I knew parts of that story. Thank you. See, I'm going to be the 43rd guy that cries on the TED Show. Thank you, by the way, for being brave enough to share that. I think you can see the wows and the likes. That's what all the hearts were, by the way, people responding. And isn't that amazing that you had the wherewithal even during it? Any of us that have gone through that, I have not a similar background for the same reasons, but I definitely have a similar childhood to that. And I think that at any time that you can break those generational chains, I mean, honest to God, that is so, what a blessing to the rest of the world. And I feel blessed that I'm not in the same position that some of the other people in my family still are. They're still in that. And so what a blessing to your children. And look what you've been able to accomplish and be able to do in spite of that. But you talked about mentors. So at some point you said you had to raise yourself because your mom didn't know how. Where did the mentors come from? Was it school? Was it sports?
Great question. A combination of, but the first real mentor that I had was, so when my father passed away, got reunited back with my mom back in Puerto Rico, and about 3 houses down from my aunt's house, there was a gentleman there by the name of Francisco, and he was actually a teacher. And he was very profound, he was very deep. He was an astrologist as well. And, you know, he noticed one day I was walking kind of fast-pacing in front of his home, and he saw I was really upset. I was actually very angry that day. I was still trying to manage my emotions. And he pulled me in. He's like, hey, come here, let's talk for a second. And he said, you know, I remember you. I know who you are. I'm like, you don't know who I am. You know, I'm kind of cocky, right? Teenager. And he's like, no, I know who you are. You're Manolito, and, you know, this is your story, and this, that, this. So he started telling me, and I remember seeing your dad, you know, doing the things that he was doing, and the things with your sister. So he caught my attention, and he's like, you know, what's wrong? And he started talking to me, and then he really started to open up my eyes, and he told me one thing that was very instrumental. He says, Manny, up until that moment, actually, I asked him a question. I said, you know, why does this happen to me? Why did it have to happen to me? Why did it have to happen to my sister? And he turned around and he says, well, why not? He's like, the reason it happened for you is because maybe you are the person that's going to have the strength and the courage to break those chains, right? To be able to be a positive influence in the lives of other people, to be able to take people to the next level, to ensure that, you know, your children never go through the experiences that you went through and that your sisters went through. And again, I was 15, 16 years old, and these were just seeds, right? So when you have a good mentor, correct, they plant these emotional seeds, and sometimes they don't work for a while. They just kind of sit there in the back in your subconscious mind. And years pass, and then all of a sudden you have another life event where you catch yourself going, well, why me? Why is this happening to me, right?
Right,
and
absolutely.
Then the answer comes in and says, well, Manny, it's happening to you because you're strong enough, because you're good enough, because you have to figure out a way to break those chains. You know, you have to learn from your past mistakes. So many mentors along the way, but he was one of the key ones, you know, when it came to the emotional stuff, the good stuff. And then I had many mentors in sales, you know, that helped me correlate, you know, the why. I love your show because really what you're doing is you're talking and you're asking people, you know, what is their why? So they helped me figure out what my why was in life, and then they attached that to, you know, a competitive work environment, and then I learned from them how to put the two together to really create that peak performance, you know, that, you know, people in competitive work environments look for. So
let me add, there's a couple of questions, lots of comments. Good mentors and anti-bullying programs help kids survive. Agreed. Jen asked, do you ever feel an urge to be violent? Than you can control. It's hard for kids who are abused to stop that pattern. And I'll let you go first because I have an answer for that too.
That's a great question. Actually, I was very violent as a child. You know, I found myself wanting to cause harm to animals. That was kind of, you know, my outlet. And there was a particular moment where I did, you know, harm an animal. It was a squirrel, and it broke my heart, you know, and that was the day that I decided, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And then I went from that moment or moments of rage to then thinking, man, I've hit rock bottom. Now here I am causing harm onto other living beings. And that's when I actually tried killing me. And I was very fortunate, by the way, that I failed horribly at killing myself. I tried 3 times, and all 3 times I failed, which is a good thing. Yeah.
For that, my friend.
So, and that made me feel even worse at that time. I'm like, I can't even kill myself. Like, what's wrong with me? You know.
I don't mean to laugh, but wow.
But it is kind of funny, right? Up until I was about 18 or 19 years old, I was pretty hot-headed. And then when I was 19, that's when I got pregnant, or we got pregnant with my eldest daughter, and I was 24. And it hit. I said, wait a second, hold on. I'm bringing a little princess to the world.
Yep.
You know, I am a punk, at that time, Puerto Rican, hot-headed, you know. Nothing was going for me in my life. I was physically broke. I was emotionally broke. I was financially broke. And I started asking questions like, what kind of father am I going to be? What changes do I need to make in my life to be able to provide for her an exceptional life? And I made some very drastic decisions within a short period of time. Within a month of finding out that Jasmine was coming, I took a look at my immediate circle of influences, of friends that I had, and I cut off relationships that were no good, that I knew weren't no good. And then I just decided to focus on me and focus on work and focus on developing myself. I was really broke at the time, and there was this one, you have heard of him probably, Tony Robbins was selling his Personal Power 2 thing, and it was $300. I didn't have a penny to my name. I borrowed the money to buy those CDs, and I just became a student of developing myself. You
invested in yourself.
That's right.
And I think that's what happens. So what you said is exactly what I had to make the decision. You have to decide. It's all up to you, and that's the part that's hard, because it's very easy to fall back on those negative feelings and how you were, so it's going to be the same way. But I honestly believe, I'm a man of faith, so I believe that I was given an opportunity that a lot of people in my family obviously weren't, and so I decided at that moment I was not going to be like that, and my kids would never feel the same things that I felt as a child. And that was not easy, because I lost friends over it. I lost pretty much the majority of my family over it. And there is absolutely no regret on my part. I would do it all over again, because the life that I have been blessed with because of those decisions is far more than I ever dreamed of. And my children never have experienced any of that.
Right.
And so then we send them out into the world, and then you exponentially, you think about how they're impacting the world, because you made the decision as the parent to give them that environment, to give them the positive things that you didn't have.
Absolutely. One of the big things, to answer again, whenever I have one of those moments, because we all have those moments that want to take us over the edge, I take a moment to think and to reflect, and I ask this question: what else does this mean? If I have somebody that's attacking me for whatever reason, or who's angry at me, and I start to catch, well, wait a second, I'm going to become defensive here. I just take a moment, I reflect, and then by asking that question, it allows me to understand this person's upset for a reason. So let me go ahead and find out what that reason is, and then we can go ahead and deal with this as adults, and we can get to the next level. There's no shouting in my house. There's no screaming. We sit down, we dialogue, we converse. As a parent, I hold my kids to some great standards in terms of being a part of the community. When I see them posting something on social media, for example, that I think is detrimental to their potential persona, I'll call them. I'll say, hey, listen, can you reread what you just posted? What do you mean by that? What kind of perception do you think that you're creating out there with what you're posting? Do you think that's the type of image that you really want people to have of you in the future? Your children, if your children were to read this one day. And that has allowed me to really kind of help them manage through, some of the emotional things that they go through. So that's
so awesome. All right, one question, a little deep, and then I want to get to peak performance, because we have so many people sending you, and both of us, tons of love, by the way.
Thank you.
We'll answer all of those. We appreciate you guys. Did it have an impact on you from a music perspective? Because a lot of times when you're punished for doing things, and you're punished because you're not doing it well, you go in the opposite direction. You end up hating music, you end up hating sports, you end up hating these things. Is that what happened to you?
It's funny. Actually, I was pretty good. There was 2 years in a row while we were still living in Miami, where I actually won a scholarship to one of the music schools there. But I still felt like I wasn't good enough. So after my father passed away, and going back into Puerto Rico, obviously, you know, my mother and my family in Puerto Rico, they weren't well financially. So there was no money for pianos or anything like that. So we kind of got disconnected from it. What's funny is, as a form of self-therapy, many years later, right, when I buy my home and everything like that, I went and bought a beautiful white baby grand piano.
I bet you did. As you should. That has to be the end of that story.
Right.
I love it.
and I didn't buy it so much to play it. I bought it so much to remind me, you know, where I came from. And it was this beautiful, gorgeous, you know, white baby grand piano with, you know, red velvet accents. And it just sat there. And every once in a while I would go on and I would play and everything like that. And what happened was that my children became interested in it, and Jasmine started picking up piano, and she started doing very, very well with it. My son Zachary started doing it too. And since then, you know, we've moved to Asia, and I had to sell the piano and everything like that. So we're now back. I don't have a piano again yet, but no, I love music. I love music, and I think that I've come to terms with my childhood. I think that the way that I was brought up actually is a blessing in disguise. Sure. It's helped me become who I am today. And again, you know, going back to Francisco. What he told me is that, Manny, you went through that because you were supposed to break those chains. You know, had it been a different person, maybe that person would have been beating their kids and continue that generational type of abuse. So, but yeah, good question.
What a beautiful story. All right, so now let's bring you to your current, because you have a beautiful family, which you've referenced. You have an amazingly successful business. So talk a little bit about how that all progressed and where you're at now as far as business is concerned.
All right, so peak performance to me is having balance in the different buckets of your life, right? So we all have buckets. We have our family bucket, we have our health bucket, we have our career bucket, we have our finance bucket, maybe our religious bucket, whatever those buckets are in your life. And, you know, I have many friends, as well as I'm sure some of you do, that, you know, maybe they have a great financial success, but everything else is falling apart in their life. So to me, peak performance is really having a good understanding of what are the key things that really drive you, what wakes you up in the morning, right? And then figuring out how to manage all of that and giving it the right amount of energy and focus so that you could partake and enjoy all of those things. So when I go and I build these sales teams, the first thing that I try to do is understand who they are as an individual. What is their why? Right? What is their story? Why are they doing, exactly, why are they doing what they're doing? What are their passions? And then once I know what their passions are, sometimes they don't even know, which is kind of scary.
A lot of people don't. They've never really thought about it.
That's right.
It's funny. So how do you get with that when somebody says, I don't know what my why is? How do you help them discover that?
We sit down and we dialogue in a you know, closed environment where they feel safe, and we start asking a bunch of questions. You know, well, you know, talk to me about your childhood. Talk to me about, you know, where you are right now. Talk to me about where you want to be. You know, what do you think is something that would juice you, that would drive you, that would energize you? And if it's relationships or if it's whatever it is, you know, I want to make a bunch of money because I want to go buy a boat. Well, why the boat? You know, what is it about the boat that you, right? And then sometimes it's funny because you'll talk to people and they say, well, I just want to make a bunch of money. Well, why do you want to make a bunch of money? Well, because I want to be free. Well, what do you want to be free of? Right? And you start
you have to drill it down.
You drill it down, and then finally they're like, wait a second, I don't want to make a lot of money. All I just want to be free. You know? So
Isn't it funny because people have never had anyone ask them that, or they just have been either raised with that, or that's what somehow, somewhere along the way, they decided that's what I want. Whether it's from reality TV or a TV show or somebody that they knew that they looked up to, but they have no idea really the why or what the outcome. So, hey, Manny, you just won $1 million. They would not know what to do with it if they hadn't thought through it.
Actually, a lot of people that win the lottery go broke within a few years after they win it. Absolutely. Because they just don't know what they're doing, and they, you know, spend it on things that really don't mean anything. Yeah,
that's correct.
So again, to me, I think it's all about balance. You know, we all can relate. We probably, if you take a look at your circle of influence, of friends that you have, there's probably people that are some of them are struggling financially, some of them are struggling with their health. You know, in the line of business that I'm in, I've dealt with tens of thousands of people, and I've had people from all walks of life. And it's very tough when you're in front of a client and they have a bandana on and they're looking at you and you're talking to them and they're telling, Manny, you know what? I have 3 months to live, and they're sitting there with their kids. That's heartbreaking, you know? And some of those encounters and some of those experiences have really contributed in my life to understand, you know, what's really important and how I need to prioritize. And I try to deliver that to all the people that I work with as well.
And so you have a team. Tell them about what you're currently doing, because you've got a couple of roles in your life. Well, you probably have multiple roles in your life. And you also do these great videos, which you should talk about.
Sure.
But you do a lot, so explain to them what you're doing.
So, you know, the last 20 years I've been really busy working with teams and building sales teams. Most of my career has been in vacation ownership with branded companies like Sheraton. And, you know, we deal with face-to-face selling situations where we really connect with the client and try to bring them as much value as we can. And then through that value proposition, then they see themselves, you know, becoming an owner of our product. Then I did that for about 11, 12 years, and then I branched off on my own. Started a really tiny, small call center here in Orlando, and we took that from 9 reps to 125 reps over the course of 24 months.
Wow.
We were making a bunch of money. We were making a difference in the community. I sold that, and then I told myself I'm going to take a year off. I'm going to take a sabbatical. That lasted 4 months.
Those plans don't go well.
That's right. That lasted 4 months. A buddy of mine knew what my history was with vacation ownership and doing group presentations, so on and so forth. And then we started buying condos here in Orlando that were in foreclosure, and we were having to find people that had the money cash to buy them because there was no financing at the time for condominiums.
Right.
And then we decided to put a roadshow together, and we were going to Latin America and Canada and Asia, and we learned a lot. We sold a bunch of these condos, which I think was good for the community because, you know, the banks weren't having to pay all of the HOAs and all of that. That's right.
Did you learn how to speak
No.
the language over there?
No, I'll tell you what, Mandarin is in Cantonese is actually very difficult. Yeah,
How about the food, just real quick off?
Well, it depends, right? So in Hong Kong, the food is amazing.
Because that's more cosmopolitan, right?
Yes, that's right. But in Beijing and Shanghai, we celebrated our success with going to some really authentic Chinese restaurants, and it was horrifying. Yes.
I'm afraid I don't want anything to move on my plate, right?
Yeah, and a lot of it is still moving. That's right.
I didn't mean to get you off topic. But I'm always fascinated by that because I think people are like, oh, Asian food, or nothing against pay away, but a pay away, or
very different.
That is not real traditional food, by
That's
the
right.
way. All right, so what are you doing now? You have Brick Realty, right?
Yeah, so I sold that company too. So
you did.
Yeah,
So
after we
see,
did that, yeah,
the R&D, I told you here,
That's right.
folks.
Yeah, I sold Brick Realty. We had both the sales side and then we had the property management side. Sold that, and then I ended up living in Asia for a couple of years. We were running a big timeshare organization over there called Anantara Vacation Club. Did that for 2 years. I served as a VP of sales and marketing for the whole region.
Was that difficult to be over there, or? Because your family was here. I mean, they visited, right? But they were or did they?
No, my wife and the little one actually ended up moving with me.
They did.
Yep.
Okay.
And after the first year, then my 18-year-old son Zachary, he ended up going over there as well.
Cool.
Yeah. So the first 6 months was a bit of a transition, but then we love living in Thailand. I would move back there in a heartbeat.
What about it is fascinating?
You know what? Number one is the things that you experience are so different, right? The environment, the people, super great. Very spiritual, very giving, from a place of really wanting to serve. The food was just to die for, the scenery. And then the cost of living I thought was very good too. I mean, we lived in a 3,200 square foot apartment right in the heart of Bangkok, and we were paying $3,000 a month, you know, for an apartment that would cost $10,000 or $15,000 in Miami or New York or something like that. So,
but you're back.
You're back.
You're back. All right, so let's talk a little bit as we're starting to run a little bit out of time, and I want people to get your peak performance thought process, because I think a lot of people that tune in entrepreneurial wise, they want to be at peak performance, but first of all, they don't know how to measure it. They're not even sure what that actually means because nobody really defines that. And so what kind of words of wisdom can you talk about as far as the peak performance goes?
So again, it's about balance. It's understanding what your why is. If you are in a competitive selling environment, then obviously, you know, how do you measure yourself? How do you know that you're winning? You know, are you competing against yourself, or are you competing against the roster of the other salespeople? If it's within your life, you know, how do you know that you're at peak performance with your spouse, or with your kids, or with your friends, or with your significant
others? So it can go across the board. I love that.
That's right.
That's right. It's not just about the job, is what he's saying. It's life in general.
Yeah, my most successful salespeople are people that have good balance. I've had people that are incredible at sales, and that's all they're good at, and everything else collapses around them, and then eventually that's not sustainable. But it's the ones that have that balance, it's the ones that know why they're living, that know what their purpose is. Those are the ones that actually, you know, are achieving the biggest results. So peak performance is, you know, how do you wake up every day? You know, when you wake up, are you passionate? Are you excited? You know, are you shooting for something very, very special that day? Are you thrilled to wake up? Are you thrilled to go to work? Are you thrilled to go interact with people? Are you thrilled to go learn something? Or if you're not, then I think you probably need to look at, you know, reevaluating some things, whether it's your mindset, you know, are you thinking the right way, are you asking the right questions, or maybe you have to just change your environment. So
I think a lot of people are afraid to, we talk a lot about this on the show, people are afraid to take that leap, or they're not afraid, but they don't know how to do it. So is there a step, like do you write out a plan from your, just from your perspective? Do you have a 1-year plan, a 5-year plan? Do you have this discussion, obviously, with your beautiful wife? Do you talk about it with your partner? Do you talk about it with your business partners? How do you take that first step? Because people will come on and go, Ted, I've got this great idea. They'll message me later. Love this idea. And I'm like, I know, so what's your next step? No idea how to take even that first baby step.
So the first thing I would recommend is you have to evaluate where you are. If there's something in your life that you're not happy with, right? Whether it's your finances or your relationships or whatever, try to figure out why is that? Why are you not where you want to be? And I've practiced something where I give myself typically 90 days. So if I'm not very happy in a career move or in some type of a business relationship, I'll say, you know what, I'm going to give this my all for 90 days, right? So let's say, for example, you want to lose weight, right? And you want to be at peak performance with losing weight. Well, what are you going to do in those 90 days? You got to sit down, you got to figure out what kind of meals you're going to have, what kind of supplements you're going to have, what kind of workout regimen you're going to have. And then you got to track it. Same thing if you're in a relationship or if you're in an individual, significant relationship with somebody and it's just toxic, it's not going well. Well, is the problem you or is the problem the other person? So give it everything
you hear what
you
he
have.
said? Is the problem you or is the problem the other person? I think a lot of people miss out on that. I think a lot of people spend their time blaming other people.
Yep.
And then the problem is you spend so much time doing that you're not taking, you're not evaluating what's going on with you. I'm actually talking about this on Wednesday night. I'm doing a presentation for Disrupt HR and it's about toxicity. And I think a lot of people don't, their whole plan is how to ruin their arch nemesis, right? And that could be, your arch nemesis could be your ex, could be your boss, could be your parents, or it could be a job you didn't get. And I think a lot of people don't take the time to be introspective and really think about, okay, what am I gonna do next? I've got this great idea. How am I gonna overcome that? Instead of focusing on the negative, focus on what you can do as a human being.
And it's harder to put the blame on yourself than it is to put the blame on somebody else. It's easy to blame somebody else. 100%. But when you have to look at yourself in the mirror and go, man, I'm the root of the problem, that's tough to do. But that's usually where the breakthroughs come through. So yeah.
I agree. All right, any parting words of wisdom for them? And we're going to share all of Manny's contact information, anything he'll let me. And thank you for being brave enough to share that story. I think that was beautiful.
Pleasure.
And I knew parts of it, but wow, definitely impacted by that. You have lots and lots of people who stayed on, by the way, and lots of questions which we'll respond to later. But anything you want to leave them with? See how quickly this goes?
It goes fast.
So
that was
fast.
30 minutes, like
I know. So anything you want to leave them with, any parting words of wisdom, something that helped motivate you, your epiphany, whatever it is, just share away.
Will do. You know, we all live on borrowed time. I believe that. We have one, life here on this earth that we know of. And, we shouldn't be zombies. I think there's a lot of people out there that are walking dead, right? They are alive, they're breathing, but they are not operating from a place of full passion, of being at peak performance. So, take some time. Take some time to sit down, to evaluate where you are, where you want to be, to ask yourself some of the, hard questions, and just go out there and find some good people, find some mentors, go find somebody who has the results that you want and go model after them.
Oh, yeah,
and if you do that, you're going to save yourself some heartache. You're going to, speed up the process and you're going to achieve, bigger results. So go out there and make it happen.
All right. Thanks, man, for coming on.
Buddy.
What a blessing, man. What a blessing. All right. We love you guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you at 3 o'clock. But we'll post all of Manny's information. Honestly, you have lots of people who are interested in talking to you. And I understand why. It was a beautiful show. You did an amazing job.
Thank you.
Absolutely amazing. Love you guys.
Take care, buddy. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
We'll see you.